episode 18.
18? 18 of the Good Boys podcast.
Yes, of
With
the Good Boys podcast.
Our beloved host, Jake. Yeah, there we go. Here we go. Yeah. Smack that camera.
Okay, now I gotta uh-oh. Is that good? Yeah, that's good. That's good.
That's good.
Wasn't exactly what it was prior, but whatever. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah, so
what are we getting into, Jake? Explain.
Well, last week we did Bones' origin story.
Yes.
This week it is mine. Fun.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So, first of all, my origin story is a lot less dramatic than Bones's. I'm white, as you can see. So, and I was born into a middle-class family. So
there's nothing wrong with being white, dude. There's nothing wrong
it's
with
just,
being white.
I don't have as much, spiciness in my life that's happened.
That's the thing, right? That I don't, I have like a little pet peeve, right? Every single person can have whatever experience they want. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, I mean more from like the white privilege perspective,
No, but it's completely fine though. Yeah. It's completely fine, Like I'm not gonna shit on you for that. Like, why would I shit on you for that, dude? I have no reason. Like, I think
you fucking Caucasian bitch, like
shithead, Like I never had what you had, No, it's not. For me, it's not like that. For me, it's like you're a good guy. You're just a good guy. It doesn't matter, you're a good dude. I fucking know.
Do bad guys have cat ears?
They don't. Not to go
I don't think so. I can't think of a single murderer that has ever had these. So there we go. We're doing good.
But like, quick thing though, I don't think races should, say stuff like I'm not saying like oh, I'm white, I can't have like a bad experience. You can't have a bad experience. It is everybody has bad experience.
Environment.
I hate people that say stuff like you're white, you can't have this because we went through this,
Yeah, it's not true.
Because to me, everybody's fucking equal. Everybody's the same fucking dumbass. But yeah, go on.
Exactly.
I bet.
Yeah, so I guess I'm going to go into my origin story. I have not outlined this at all, so I'm just going to kind of go off the dome, even though it shouldn't be that hard, because for the first, 17 years of my life, it wasn't a shit ton of shit. So, to preface, as, the prologue to my life, basically, before I was even born, my mom and dad both lived in California. That's where I'm originally from too, and they grew up there. And my mom was a grade ahead of my dad. Actually went to school with my dad, or with my uncle, or my dad's brother. And
question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Your mom's older than your dad?
Only by a little over a year.
Dude, that's lit, dude.
Sure, I guess so. Yeah. Yeah, and then they actually apparently dated when they were in their 20s, I think, and then they split off and had separate marriages. They weren't together, and kind of went their separate ways for a while. My mom got married and had a baby, so my half sister. And my dad also got married and had a baby, my other half sister. And then,
dude, this is new to me, bro.
And then they both got divorced from those people, and then got back together and went. And here I am. So,
wait, holy shit! Wait,
so I have two half sisters. And I was born in San Jose, California. I want to say the hospital is called Alexian Brothers or some shit. I don't know if it's still a thing, but I want to say that's what it's called. And yeah, I came out very, a white baby with apparently I had very insanely light golden hair, like as light blonde as you could imagine, practically looks like bleached blonde hair.
Did you like that one fucking kid from Game of Thrones?
I haven't watched Game of Thrones.
Yeah, god damn it.
Sorry.
He's a shitty character, but he's a good actor, good fucking actor, but shitty.
Oh, I think I've seen a picture, but no, I'm talking angel hair blonde.
Jesus
Um,
Christ, dude.
yeah, and so to kind of go off of the same thing you did, which was like first memory, is the first memory I ever have is um I want to say I must have been in a stroller or something, and I was we were in some department store. I just remember watching the roof go by, so I was like, I must have been watching the ceiling and just watching it go by. So I remember that, and I think I want to say that that memory may have been from like one of my baby photo shoots or something, you know,
You
when you
think
go get
so?
in photos, I think. So yeah, but I grew up in a town called Brentwood, California, which is
It's by
I
LA, no?
no, it's like San
No.
Jose, South Bay area.
Okay.
So grew up there when we lived in a pretty nice house in California, like it's like 2 stories, like 4 bedrooms, pretty massive, large backyard with like a pool and shit. And you know, it's California, so like
California.
a pool is nice because it's fucking hot as shit all the time.
Fucking annoying, dude.
Yeah,
Hot fucking weather.
yeah, and so I remember it was so hot that like my dad at that time he was kind of like a handyman. Like he would like garden or like mow
Yeah.
lawns. Like he would mow lawns. That was his job or occupation at the time.
Like
While I was
landscaping?
but I think it was just more like lawns, like mowing lawns. But in California,
Yeah.
it's I mean it's so hot that I mean people want their lawns mowed. So he had
Yeah.
a bunch of customers,
Yeah.
and he would do that while I'm at school and in daycare and blah blah blah. And my mom would work. I don't know what she was doing at that time when I was really young. I all I knew is her commute was like 2 fucking hours, so it would take her forever to get to and from work.
Yeah.
So I grew up in general for like the first 13 years of my life. I grew up with my dad. Like my dad was like the stay-at-home parent. Did
Yeah.
that make sense?
That's lit, dude. I always want to do that.
Yeah, so my mom was the breadwinner of the household. So she would work a lot. But to go back to childhood stuff, I remember I would get picked up from daycare. Yeah, go ahead.
Um, did your parents like ever argue about like, oh, like your dad not like being the stay at home and all that, or no?
No, I think the way they told me, because I asked how that came about, and they're like, I made double what he made. It was fucking obvious. She was like, it's
Yeah.
obvious who's staying home,
Yeah.
and he didn't put up a fight because he knew it too. So it's like my dad wasn't one of those like prideful fathers where it's like I have to be this provider and blah blah blah. Like
Yeah.
he understood that that just wasn't a thing. So because my mom was like a project manager in like the electronics field, so she
Yo.
was pretty fucking good at that. Um, but to go back to the story I was gonna say is like,
Yeah.
when my dad gardened or you know mowed lawns, he'd pick me up from school or daycare in this
Yeah.
old ass fucking like Ford, like you know like the old ass cars that are long as shit, they like practically like a fucking boat. You know, if you were to drive one, had no fucking AC at all. No AC in that car. So it's like 90 something degrees outside and you're fucking dying when he's picking me up. Luckily our house had AC, so like once we got home it was fine. But I'll tell two quick stories from that part of my childhood. Um, First, the one I remember the most. Actually, I'll do like so these aren't going to be structured stories. Actually, there's just a few things that are coming to my mind. So first, when I was at um I went to a daycare called the Sun House or like the Sunshine House, the Sunshine
Yeah.
House. And eventually I moved to a different daycare, I think. And I remember my first experience with a video game was in that daycare. And they had like a Need for Speed type game. It was like a racing game.
Yeah.
And you could pick a car and customize the car. And I remember that's when I fell in love with the color scheme of like teal, turquoise, blue, and black. Fucking
Dude, yeah.
loved that color scheme. You can see it in Rocket League now. I fucking have that color scheme for my blue car. And I've always been in love with that color scheme since that day, and I don't know why. It's just like that's
Dude,
always been like that's looked fucking dope to me.
I actually like the color turquoise, but with white in GTA.
Yeah,
Because
I
it was
like
like
both, but
it was
turquoise
a
was my
rare color in
shit.
GTA. Yeah, turquoise is fucking lit, dude. Go on
Yeah.
though, my bad.
Um another thing from the daycare center where I did that is, and I could be wrong, but do you know Matt Hoffman, the BMX rider?
Yeah, sounds familiar.
So really, like one of the legendary BMX riders. I want to say he may have been one of the staff members there because I remember a dude named Matt who looked very similar, and he was always really cool and looked like a skater boy and whatnot. I remember he was the one who taught me how to tie my shoes.
Dude, that'd be kind of cool.
But I don't know. I have no way of knowing this or proving it, but I have, for some reason, I feel like it may have been him. I don't know. But the two main stories that I was gonna go is, because I had a pretty chill childhood, like nothing crazy. It was like the normal shit, like going to school,
yeah,
and going home, and playing with because we lived in like a neighborhood, and so I had friends in the neighborhood that were kids near my age. I had one fucking kid that I didn't like. But other than that, it was chill.
There's always that one fucking kid,
dude. He was such a dickhead. But there was, so the first one is, I'm gonna tell you the story about how I figured out I have allergies to grass. Because
isn't everybody though? Isn't that like a common thing?
Yes, but this is the day I found out that was a thing.
Oh shit.
So I was at daycare and there was a park across the street or something, and and we went to that park for like a playtime or whatever, and I was tired that day apparently, so I decided I was going to lay down in the grass and take a nap. And when I woke up, my eyes were swollen practically shut.
Dude,
like it was horrible. Like my eyes were literally like practically shut, both of them. So they had to call me in, and yeah, I looked like a fucking little like alien, like because of that. And from then on, I've known not to take naps in grass or deal with grass in general.
Dude, I had a really good memory with grass, and I remember I ate pizza on grass. Like I started eating grass though. It was super weird.
Okay.
Yeah, go on though.
So yeah, I remember that was one of those like childhood memories. The second childhood memory I have, which probably is where my like love for food started, because obviously I love food. I mean, look at me.
Yeah.
I remember when my dad would pick me up, our ritual at the time was to go to like 7-Eleven, get Slurpees. We'd get Slurpees all the fucking time. But another thing was we'd get like Little Caesars pizza. Little Caesars was like really good at that time. I mean, we're talking like, I don't know, I still 2004 time, and Little Caesars was good. And we took it home. We got an all cheese pizza, and we got home, and he, put the pizza on the counter, and I was watching TV or doing whatever, and he went up to take a shower because he'd been mowing lawns all day. Well, I took the liberty of I took all of the cheese off the pizza and ate all of the cheese and just left the crusted sauce. and he was so pissed when he got back down because he's like, what the fuck did you do? Like, he threw away the rest of the pizza because he's like, I don't know, like I don't want to fucking just eat crust and like barely any sauce. I ate all the cheese off this large pizza. I'm like 5 years old. I just ate the whole fucking thing. It was so
Dude, I find it so funny because I can see your dad's reaction, like, what the fuck? Why do you
why do you fucking do that, dude? Yeah, because when you're 5, you don't think about other people. So I wasn't thinking about him. I was thinking about like, I want the fucking cheese off this pizza, and I took it. so I just was like picking it off piece by piece. Yeah. So those are the main things I remember. So basically, what happened with Brentwood, why I don't live there anymore, is, I was born in '98, so I'm 22 now.
You're old, bro. When was that, like Vietnam?
Yeah, pretty much. I remember Reagan. And when 9/11 happened, I
was born during 9/11.
Oh, you were?
Not during, but like same year.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, no, so when 9/11 happened, all of my parents' savings went away because of the financial
Oh, the finance.
devastation
Yeah, I
of
remember, dude.
yeah. So
My dad used to tell me about that all the time.
yeah, so they lost all of their savings to 9/11, which was horrible. I don't know how much they had, but they lost all of it. And my mom started working for a little company called Logitech. Um, and
That's what kind of company is that? It
yeah,
sounds
I've
like,
never heard of it. You know,
uh,
Gamers Unite, never heard of it.
dude,
Um,
I've never heard of it before.
and she got the offer to transfer out of California, um, to not dox myself too much, to Washington State. Um, and we were like, fuck yeah, because California sucks to live in.
Oh, dude,
It's
yeah.
just, it's hot as shit. Everything's expensive there. And
Like for no fucking reason too.
there's not many redeeming qualities about living in California. Like I'm
Uh,
fine with visiting there, but living there, no.
yeah, this is a
Um,
visiting state, not a living state.
yeah. So when we got the offer to move up there, my parents set their sights on, we want to live like in the forest.
Oh
Basically,
yeah,
they're like,
yeah.
we want to live in amongst the trees. If we could live on like a river too or some shit,
The
like that
monkeys.
would be dope too.
Yeah,
And they ended up finding that property, um, in the forest, 16 miles into the forest from the closest town.
yeah.
And we had also, it was like on, like we had our own patch of river too, of this
That's pretty
river.
cool.
And so we were like, we were super pumped to go up there, and start living there. And so we moved. I remember when we first moved, the renters or whoever was renting the property prior or leasing the property prior, um, because my parents went up to visit the property prior to actually moving,
Yeah.
and um, they had like, according to my mom, ugly ass red carpet. And so she's like, that shit has to go. But little did we know that when they moved out, they ended up trashing the place and taking all of the flooring from the whole house
God damn.
out. And so the first month we lived up here in that house, I don't live there now, obviously, but like when we lived there, we were living on subflooring with no Wi-Fi, no TV for the first like 2 weeks either, because I mean we're 16 miles up this like long road. Like basically you're in the boonies at that point. Like you're
Yeah.
out in the middle of fucking practically nowhere. Like we have neighbors, but they're not very close. And so
Like 5 miles away, huh?
no, like I mean they were like the next lot over, but
Yeah.
like there was just so much space though still that they weren't close necessarily. Um so that was hard, but eventually we got flooring and eventually we got Wi-Fi, and we lived so far up there we had to get like satellite TV and satellite internet, which uh I definitely do.
How does satellite internet work? It's like shit,
So
isn't it?
so basically you have a dish on top of your house, and it has to be positioned very specific or else it will not work basically.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to have like professional people install it. And I would certainly recommend to anyone listening to not ever get that if you don't have to, because
Dude, I'm moving to Texas, bro. I think I'm gonna have to have it.
satellite TV is okay. Satellite internet can be a bitch, and can be very spotty depending on what you have. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's gotten better since then because
Elon
it's
Musk,
been a
he made
while.
the satellite.
Maybe so. Maybe it's better for all I know.
Yeah.
But at that time it sucked, and um, I'm trying to think. Like, so we moved up here to Washington State,
Yeah.
and it was my second grade year when I moved up here, like right before second grade started. So, because I think we moved in July and school started, first week of September. So got in like the new school, whatever. And I don't really have many stories from like my school. It was 6 miles away, still kind of in the boonies, but it was cool. It was a jointed elementary school and middle school. They were together, like, but like one half of it was elementary and the other half was middle
Yeah.
school. So I went there the whole time from elementary through middle school. um and it was fine. I didn't have many issues in middle school or elementary. I can't say I was popular, but like I wasn't bullied necessarily. And
Yeah.
I was always kind of one of those people who I just had like my very select few of friends, and that was about it. I wasn't that's really all I had. Like, I mean, I don't know, I want to say I was personable, but I think my humor was always different than a lot of people's too.
Yeah.
Like you could like I have very memey humor and that type of stuff, and I not a lot of people necessarily have that, you know.
Yeah.
So I only had a few people I really related to in the first place, but when I first moved up here, I got into baseball. I had played like t-ball in, in California, and so
Yeah.
like and I liked baseball. It was like that one sport that I like actively wanted to play. And I played like when I was a kid I played basketball and soccer too, like whatever, but baseball was like the sport I enjoyed the most.
Yeah.
So I started playing baseball when I moved up here. I met a coach who we liked, and I don't know how that all happened. I think we just got like thrown on the team, but he ended up being my coach for quite a long time, up until probably like seventh grade, eighth, yeah, like seventh grade.
Yeah.
So a pretty long time, especially if I started in like second grade, third grade. And we in baseball was kind of like the one thing that I had like as a constant in my life, because living up so far in the boonies, it's hard to have friends over because it's kind of a hassle to bring people up or to go down. And
Dude,
internet
they're
was
gonna be like, we don't want you going to there. They're gonna kill you. It's too far.
yeah, no, it was just more like there was not really anyone there was no kids my age group that lived up near me. And so everyone else I knew lived in town, 60
Yeah.
miles away. So it was more of like a hassle thing, really. Um, and internet was shit. So I never played online games like against people online. It was always single player shit. Like
Yeah.
that's it. Or if I had a friend over, that's all I had. Which kind of leads me to like why I do this now. Because and I'll get into it a little bit later, but to go back to like the baseball stuff, because that's like one of the main themes, I guess, of my childhood, and like really up until fairly recently. Um, we the first year we played, we were okay, but the second year we entered a league called Junior Baseball Organization, which was like because we played Little League the first year, and then we went into this new thing, which is like the best way I can explain it is like Little League's like here, skill level wise. JBO is like here, like you're like playing against better than Little League. Like I would watch the Little League World Series and be like, these kids are fucking trash.
Yeah.
Like, right. And so and we were playing it's hard. I'm trying to explain the best I can without doxing myself. Because a lot of it's location based stuff, but we were the only team from like our state in this league. Like the rest of them were from a different state. The whole league was really from a different state. They just let us play too. And for the first 3 or 4 years in league play, we went undefeated. We didn't fucking lose.
Holy shit, dude.
We only lost in like tournaments. Like people could not fucking touch us basically in regular league play. In tournaments, so the first year we played in that organization, we went to the state championship.
Yeah.
And we lost. We got second place.
Jeez, dude.
Super. And I remember the one memory I have is because when you're a kid, it's really hard to hit. Like hitting in baseball is hard when you're a kid, and a lot of kids suck dick at fucking hitting. And I was one of those kids. And I remember, I don't know if it was a state championship game, but it was one of the games during that whole tournament in general. I remember I got when you play baseball, if you don't play baseball, when you're going up to hit, your third base coach, which is usually your head coach, is standing there and giving you signs on like what to do. And signs will be like to swing away. So like, swing if it's your pitch, swing it. Sometimes it's to take a pitch, which means like don't swing at this pitch, just like let it happen. Some other things like hit and run, where it's like, this person's gonna steal and then you're gonna try to hit the ball no matter where the fuck it is, hit the fucking ball basically. And he gave me a take sign, which means I'm not supposed to swing. Like if I swing this bat and I miss, basically. And I remember I got the take sign, I step up to bat, and the kid pitches the ball, and it could not have been more fucking in the middle at all. And I swing that bat knowing I'm not supposed to, and I fucking bomb it. It hits off the fence. Like it's a line drive and hits the fence. It's not a home run, but it hits the fence. So it's like a really good fucking hit. And I think my coach told me something like, next time take, but like good hit. Something like that. Like, like you disobeyed me, but like it worked. So whatever. But yeah, so I remember that. And then my second year, we ended up going back to the state championship tournament. Right. And I remember I think my dad still has the bracket from that year. But basically we were going into that year also on like that tournament undefeated again, because we're fucking OP. And we ended up losing the second game of the tournament. Now this tournament had a loser's bracket, right? And for people who haven't played sports, because I want to make sure people understand this, tournaments will have losers brackets, which basically means if you end up going to the losers bracket and getting to the final game, you've played an extra game than the other person who's been there. And you have to usually, because this tournament was double elimination, that means the other team you have to beat them twice. If that makes sense. To eliminate them, right? So we lose the second game. So we're one game away from like our season being over. And we ended up getting through the fucking losers bracket to the final game. And to give you an idea of how many games that is, I think from the time we hit the losers bracket to the final game in 2 days, that final game was our 6th game in 2 days.
Oh, I know.
So we're playing all day at this fucking tournament, right? And this team is talking a whole lot of shit because they're like, they haven't lost and they've been annihilating everyone else. And they're like, they have to lose 2 games to lose, right? Like you are in a good position. And so it's a little understandable why you'd be a little confident or cocky or whatever, but they were like cocky about it. Well, little did they know we annihilated them the first game. So that forces a tiebreaker championship game.
Yeah.
And, we won. We won the state championship. North Marion, if you're here, fuck yourself. Okay, we fucking beat you, bitches. Sorry I ruined your dreams. Not fucking sorry. So yeah, we won, which was really cool. And I remember I was so excited I cried a little bit because I was a little bitch. And it was really cool. But it was a really like good like accomplishment, right? And after that, like really it was just like I played baseball every season, and then my life was school and baseball and like friends, and that's about it. And and I'm trying to think of like where to go next with this. So to go back, because we're going to start going to high school stuff. So to go back to what I was saying about the internet and playing online and why I do this now, I had the one hard time I really had at that house because it was so far away. I felt very lonely.
Yeah.
I was an only child. I only had like one good friend that I saw, and I saw him pretty often, but like only one good friend. And I was very lonely, and I wanted to play online. So I had an Xbox 360. I wanted to play online.
Yeah.
But my parents wouldn't buy like the Xbox Pass or whatever to for me to play online with people. And
Oh, the
honestly,
Xbox
if
Live
they,
thing?
huh?
The Xbox Live?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, if they had, my Wi-Fi was so shit, it probably wouldn't have worked anyways. But I was like craving that. Like I wanted to play with people so bad. And like my friend Noah, who's like my best friend, he's been for 11, 12 years now. He
Yeah.
had an Xbox and he had Xbox Live. So like when we were ever at his house, we would sometimes play against people. And I just like, I craved it, you know? Like I was like, I want to play against people. Like this is what's fun. And I was watching YouTube videos, like, you know, your old school PewDiePie, but like also you're like your um God, I don't know, your COD people playing online and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I wanted to so bad, but I never was able to get the chance. Um, and that's kind of why I do this now, like YouTube and stuff, is
Yeah.
because I finally have gotten to a point in my life where I can finally fucking do that. And it's like it feels like kind of nice where like I've
Yeah.
met online friends like you and other people, and it's like people who I normally would have never seen in my life, right? Or met or talked to. And that's a lot of the reason why I like doing this and gaming and stuff, because I've never been able to do that. And it's like it feels crazy to me that I can do it now.
Yeah.
And very nice. So like that's kind of why I do like YouTube and the gaming stuff and whatnot. And I started streaming because I wanted to. But I'll also get into like my other origins of YouTube and streaming later because it's fairly recent, obviously.
Yeah.
But to go back to that house, we ended up moving. Um, well, this actually, there's another storyline arc I need to start to prior. I got in 2012 my. Do you see the bug on my fucking thing?
Yeah.
Okay, it's gone. Um, so yeah, so in 2012, I was hanging out with my friend Noah a lot. Like it was to the point where like pretty much every weekend he was
Noah
either
Miller.
yeah, dude, that'd be cool. Noah and we would like every weekend. I'm either at his house or he's at my house.
Yeah.
Every weekend, pretty much. And he one day in 2012 he showed me a song at his house. We were staying at his house, and he was like, "Dude, you need to listen to this song. It's fucking. It's like it's really cool." And it was a song. It was called "Basshead" by Bass Nectar, and it was the first song in EDM that I had ever heard. And from then on, I was hooked to EDM music and electronic music because I grew up listening to classic rock. That's what my mom likes. That's what my dad likes. And especially I was always with my dad. He played classic rock all the fucking time. So I used listening to like AC/DC and Led Zeppelin and Guns N' Roses and shit like that. And he was a big AC/DC person. So like we played them a lot too. But I got into EDM a lot, and that's when I found out about Skrillex and you know Scary Monsters and Ice Sprites, which is like a lot of people's intro to EDM because it's really what made it like popular for the most part and into the mainstream. I remember one year MLB 2K12 or MLB 2K whatever fucking year had that song in the game, and you in that game you could set it to where only a like you could select which songs play, and I I chose it to where only that song played over and over again in the fucking menu screen because I fucking love that song. Um, but yeah, I fell in love with EDM, and even prior to that, I had started to go to concerts a bit. My first concert was Gwen Stefani, actually, right after she came out with Hollaback Girl, and so she
Ain't no
was,
Hollaback
yeah,
Girl.
so she was fucking like popping at that time, and so we went to see her, which was really cool. But I was fucking young as shit. I mean, I had to have been fucking 11 going to a fucking Gwen Stefani concert. Um, and then I think my second like kind of concert was Blue Man Group. If you know who Blue Man
Blue
Group
Man
is,
Group?
yeah,
The Blue Dudes? The Blue
yeah,
Ball guys?
yeah, who do like drumming and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we went to them one year too, and that which was really cool. That was like my second like kind of like official concert. If you could call it a concert, kind of it is. It's like music focused really. Um, and then when I heard EDM, um, and Bass Nectar specifically, who now is kind of like, because, got accused of bad shit recently.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he is relevant to my origin story, really, and who I am now. We had learned that he was coming that same year that we had like discovered his music and EDM in general, and he was coming to our like the town near us, and we're like, we need to go, like we have to go see this. And so me, my dad, and my friend Noah, and we're in 8th grade. He's in 7th grade. I'm in 8th grade. We go to this concert, this EDM concert, and to set the stage a little bit, first of all, as an 8th grader, going to a rave is a really fucking weird experience because, one, if you've ever been to raves, girls fucking barely dress at all in the first place. Yeah. So 8th grade me is like, what the fuck is going on? Like 3 of the girls behind us are literally like pasties and like fucking like panties and shit. I'm like, and me and Noah are like, what the fuck are we doing, dude? We're like, what is this? We're like, what the hell is going on? But the way it was like physically structured is it was like a coliseum, but the stage was cutting off the middle, in the very middle, yeah. And then there was like the floor, and then there was like the rest of like the bowl type seats, and we were the first row of the bowl seats, like practically in the middle, because I mean, I'm in 8th grade, he's in 7th grade. Why the fuck would we go on the floor? That makes no sense. So we're first row, so we can see everything, which is really cool. And I remember, because this is kind of like one of those like spiritual experiences to me, and I'm not religious, but I'm talking like spiritual, like on another plane experiences. There was the first like 2 openers, and they were fine, they were good. But then it was time for, the big boy Bass Nectar to come on. And at that time we had known a bit more, he's, songs in his catalog and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And he has a song called Here We Go, which in my opinion is still like my favorite song. I don't listen to him anymore because of the shit he was accused of later. But it was just one of those songs where like, it's wild. And so he comes on, the whole stage, like basically the whole half of the auditorium is just fucking LED screens, right? So it's just a shit ton of LED screens. And there's actually a video on YouTube of this exact moment at where I went to it, which I'll show you after this pod maybe. And like legitimately, like it's capturing my spiritual experience in a way. But I remember we didn't really know what to expect because my dad hadn't really listened to like EDM music, but he was just one of those people where like he's super open-minded. So he's like, fuck yeah, I'll go. He doesn't care. He's like, as long as it's like fucking cool, like he doesn't care. But so Bass Nectar started his set, and the first song he played was Here We Go. And we both knew this fucking song, and we knew what was like about to happen. And, there's the whole build up, how EDM is, there's a whole build up, right? And then right when the drop happens, the bass rattles your insides, first of all, which is fucking cool. But all of the LED screens, as soon as the bass dropped, was just like fire explosions everywhere and like lighting up the whole fucking auditorium. And in my head, I don't know what Noah felt, but in my head I was like, what the fuck, dude? This is fucking cool, dude. This is sick. I was hooked ever since to like EDM and concerts in general, and I never stopped going up until like a few years ago. And so that ended up becoming one of our things, is
going to EDM concerts.
We would go to like raves and EDM concerts. And I even have this notes on my phone where I have kept track of every single artist I've seen live. Jeez. Every single one. And I'll let me get it up here. So it starts from the very start. I'll try to show this. So like, you're not gonna be able to see the people, but every is a different person.
What the fuck? There's so many, dude.
Yeah, so I've seen that many people live, right? So I ended up going to a shit ton of fucking concerts. I was going to anything that came around that I was interested in. If you know EDM, I went and saw like Glitch Mob. I went to a couple festivals when I was pretty young too, because I went to 2 festivals called Global Dance Festival that happened at Red Rocks, which is a pretty notorious music venue in Colorado. Um, and the reason I went is because my uncle, one of my dad's, because my dad has 3 brothers and a sister. One of my uncles, he knew the dude who was like putting on the festival, like the head honcho, because my uncle has his own like event security company, and he has done security for this dude for a long time. He wasn't doing it at the festivals themselves because it was because he had to use Red Rock security for those.
Yeah.
But he did like all the others. And so he knew him. Like he was like, dude, I play poker every Tuesday with the dude who's putting on this festival. He's like, I can get you guys VIP, like no problem, like free. And I'm like, sick. So there's like $300 tickets a piece for free. So all we're paying for is like the flights, and we're staying with him. So we're not even paying for hotel, paying for the rental car and food. Like that's really it. And any other miscellaneous stuff. And so we're like, fuck yeah, let's go. And so the first year we went, I was like 15 going to this like, was it 3-day festival. So then Noah's like 14 because he's like a year younger than me, and my dad and us 3 going, and that ended up being like our trio. Like it was like me, Noah, and my dad. Like we went to everything, and because we were also young too, so we needed a parent anyways. But he was like always down to go. He he loves concerts too. He doesn't give a fuck like who it is really. But we went, and I mean, like people we saw, there was like Zed is pretty popular. Saw DJ Snake before he like blew up and became what he is now. I think I want to say he was there. One of the biggest names in dubstep, Excision, played there, but as like his like side act called Destroyed, which he only did for a couple years. But a lot of people, Tiesto, Cascade, who are huge. But like those were like the best way I can describe it, because I think I was still living at the River House at that time too, is what I call it, the one in the boonies. I was so lonely up there, like going to concerts was like my escape, if that makes sense. Like it, like for those however many hours I was there, like I didn't care about anything else that was going on in the world. Like if a fucking tsunami happens somewhere, I don't give a shit. Like I do care, but like I don't give a shit at the time, or I don't even think about it. So like festivals and concerts became like, I don't want to say like my safe space, but like my place where I could go and like let out energy, be myself, like really just like enjoy things, and like not like everything else didn't matter. Like my stresses went away. And stresses at that time when you're 15, at least for me, weren't much. It was like baseball and shit in like school. But when I would go, I wouldn't care. And it was very like, it was almost like therapeutic to me to go. So we ended up going just so much. And so that became a big part of my life. And it was until fairly recently. But and that was also around the time that me and Noah got into DJing. And one Christmas, I got this mixer that was legitimately like this big. So fucking small as shit. It had it had like pause, play, cue, little small jog wheels, and like a couple knobs. And that was about it. So super fucking basic. But we would spend hours in my garage, like or wherever we could, practicing, but really just like getting songs and like playing and DJing basically to ourselves, to just us. And that ended up kind of like becoming like the dream at that time. Like my dream was like, I want to be like a EDM DJ or like a dubstep DJ. But that ended up going away too. But and at this whole time I'm also playing like baseball, and eventually we move out of the River House because one, it was we kind of got fed up with how far away we were from everything. So we decided, let's move into town. So we did, which I was kind of happy about because I fucking hated like driving 16 miles to go to the fucking store. So we moved into town, And that was around the time that like baseball ended up becoming like my life. Like I was doing it year round. I wasn't just doing it like during the actual season. I was going to like in the winter, I was going to clinics once or twice a week. I was like like all year I was doing baseball in some capacity. I was starting to take it more seriously. I ended up doing okay in it, but I ended up quitting baseball my sophomore year of after my sophomore year of high school because my high school season got really political, where I wasn't getting playing time. I got moved down to JV, even though I was the best first baseman we had. Basically, why did they do that? It's because the story is I'd been a first baseman forever because I was always tall, and people want their first basemen to be tall because that's usually where people are throwing the ball in, you know, for defensive stuff. So they want you to be tall. You're like a big target basically, and so that's what I had always played. And so I got to high school and it was no different. But my sophomore year, because my freshman year I had to play varsity because we had so little people that we didn't even have a JV team. So I just played varsity because there was no other option as a freshman. So sophomore year comes along, and the town next to us is a very like rich snobby town. That's how it's like known. And a kid from there transferred to ours, and he was a first baseman too. And so it became like a competition because initially it wasn't, because I was literally the only first baseman we had. And I thought I was guaranteed varsity too anyways, because I was like, whatever. But like, he was hot ass. He couldn't hit for shit. And his defense was fucking horrible. At first, he couldn't throw the ball from first base to home without it hitting the ground. Like he had no fucking arm. And like, at first baseman too, when you're having these plays, because you're like the first ball, like you're where this ball comes to when people get their hit, right? Yeah. Usually, like it's important for you to know how to stretch out to like kind of give that extra distance advantage to getting the ball before the runner gets to the base to get them out, right? It's important to know how to stretch and do that shit. And I fucking knew how to do that. I had done it for 10 years at this point. This kid doesn't fucking know how to do that. He doesn't stretch for shit. A ball's like this high over his head and he just lets it fly over. And I'm like, and everyone knows like I am the obvious lock for this position. Like this cannot be more obvious. Even the team captain, who was like a senior, he was like, you're our first baseman. Like you have to be. Well, I wasn't. They ended up moving me down to JV. And I ended up like talking to the coach. Like I like asked the coach, like, hey, can I talk to you? Because I was like, in my head, I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I am obviously 10 times better than this fucking kid. And the coach told me that he put me down at JV just so I could get more reps. Yeah. Which I automatically knew was fucking bullshit, because he was, you know, upping me about like, you know, you're the future of this program, blah, blah, blah. Like you're part of the future. I'm like, well, if I'm part of the future, why am I not getting varsity fucking reps, not JV fucking reps? Right? That doesn't make sense. So automatically, I'm like, this is fucking bullshit. There's no way. Yeah. So one day, like, I think it was like the captain came up to me. He's like, yo, like, you want to know why you're not first baseman? I'm like, why? Because at that point, I'm like, did I do something? Like, what's going on? He said, no, like the kid's dad talked to the coach and was like, he needs more playing time.
Oh, fuck that.
Basically complained that I was getting playing time over him. Yeah. And then they moved, and it was right after that talk that they moved me down to JV. So this kid comes from the rich snobby town because he can't make the team there, and comes here thinking he has a locked spot, and ends up having to have his dad talk it into him. Yeah. And I was pissed off. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I want to play, but I don't want to play fucking JV, dude. Like, I don't need to be. And I'm like, and when I'm playing JV, I'm annihilating these fucking kids because I am not their level, right? Or they're not my level, right? Not to toot my own fucking horn, because like I am not like a cocky baseball player. I never was. Like I knew I could have been a lot better than I was, what I was. But I knew I was better than this kid. And so I got really pissed off that season, because at that point it was like, okay, this turned into a political bullshit game, and I didn't want to play that game like that felt like a waste of time. And then that same off season, I joined like a select team is what they're called, which is like is for this organization that is more or less like prepping you to play for college and to go even further. So like good players, like they recruit players to play for them. And they recruited me to play because partly I was like really good friends with Noah, who was a big part of that program too. And that season was fucking horrible. Like I played like kind of dog shit, but a lot of it was because the coaches were fucking like, they were like Gordon Ramsay, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like they were just hard asses for no fucking reason. And I'm like, I'm a fucking like sophomore in high school. Like it was to the point where like it was unreasonable. Like I was like, I don't understand why you're so upset at me. Because there's like, I remember there's one time I was pitching because I always wanted to fucking pitch. And I always was like, you need to fucking let me pitch. Like I will fucking do it. And every time they let me pitch, I was good. But I was always, because I was so tall, I had to play first base, right?
Yeah.
So I got handicapped by that. And I was pitching one game for the select team, and I'm telling you, this umpire was fucking blind. I was pitching like perfect strikes and he was calling them balls, and I was getting pissed off. And I wasn't saying anything, but I was like obviously pissed. I was like going like this with my mitt and whatnot when he was fucking blowing calls. And so the pitching coach at that time, who was really just like an ex, like didn't make it to the major leagues catcher, like comes out and he fucking like gives me shit about like being pissed off. He's like, you need to fucking cut it out. And in my head, I'm like, are you not fucking seeing this too? Like, am I fucking high? Like, dude, I have a right to be pissed because the people behind me, because like if you're a pitcher, your second baseman, your shortstop are right behind you, and they can pretty much see how good a pitch is too, and also the center fielder. And after that, the all three positions were like, dude, you were throwing strikes. I don't know why the fucking weren't calling it. So they're like, you had a right to be fucking pissed off. But like, and it was, I don't know, it got really frustrating because like, other people could show emotion, but as soon as I was pissed off about something, like it wasn't fucking okay, and like blah blah blah, like stop complaining, and that also turned into just politics bullshit too. And I got fed up with it, and I was like, I'm done. Like I can't play baseball anymore if this is how it's gonna be. Like I play it to have a good time, and I play it for fun, and like I want to be good, but at the same time, like I don't respond to like fucking like Gordon Ramsay coaching. Like I'm just not that person. Like you cannot be like that to me. I won't respond that well. I'll just fucking hate you. And like I'm not defiant. I will not like you. And I ended up deciding like, I got to the point where I'm like, baseball is a waste of time at this point. I don't like, I could be doing other shit, even though after I quit baseball I wasn't doing other shit, but like I was like, I'm done with this. Like, it's just turning into politics bullshit. I don't want to play that game. Like, that's not what I'm signed up to play. I'm signed up to play fucking baseball and like, and put me on the right fucking team. So, so like after like 11 years of playing baseball, I stopped because it started to become, instead of, playing it for fun, it started to become like a business thing almost. I'm just like, fuck this. This is stupid. And around that time, it was when our passion for DJing kind of grew a lot, to the point where we were like trying to think of ways to like legitimately like start playing live shows or like putting ourselves out there legitimately. But I always had a very different like mindset than Noah, because he was like my partner. Like we did like a duo thing. And he was always like, this is never gonna be a thing. Like he was like, I'm doing this for fun. Like there's never gonna be a thing. And I'm like, I want this to be a thing, right? Or at least for me. And so we kind of like, that stopped, eventually kind of like stopped and like whatnot, or we were just doing it more sparingly, blah, blah, blah. And the only, like basically my days in high school turned into going to school. And like, let's say before I started working, like going to school, if he was over, I would DJ, or sometimes I'd DJ by myself, or I'd be sitting in my room playing video games or watching YouTube. Like I was very introverted in that way. I never went out to parties. I hated going to school dances. They fucking sucked in my opinion. Dude, so fucking bad. So I almost never went to school dances, and that was my life for a long time. Eventually, I had to get a job because I got to the age where I needed to get a job. So I got a job at like a community center, something simple.
Yeah.
I was like refereeing t-ball games and soccer games and shit like that. Easy shit and part-time, so nothing crazy. Yeah. And so then my days turned to school, DJing, video games or YouTube, and then work as well. Like that's all I did. That was all my life was. I had like no other responsibilities or anything like that. I wasn't really thinking about college that much. Junior year was kind of like my worst year academically. I was either having a really hard time in classes or I was just slacking off and just wasn't a good, like it was more like I was just one of those kids. Like I wasn't a bad student. I had a issue with like missing assignments, if that makes sense. Like I was just that kid who I would like forget to do homework pretty much. Like I legitimately forgot, and I have forgetting memory issues still, kind of. But
dude, I always forgot my homework.
Dude, I always forgot. So I'm trying to think. Like, so that was what my days were, and I guess senior year is kind of when my life started to change to kind of what it is now. So, as you may know, I now have a wife and I have a kid. I also have a baby on the way, due next month, and a puppy and whatnot. But we'll start with how I met my wife. It was senior year of high school. This is going to sound super Gen Z, but this is exactly how it happened. She had posted on Twitter a like for To Be Honest in your DMs. So I liked it. And she sent me a DM or whatever, like with a To Be Honest saying like, I don't know you that much, but I would like to get to know you, and with a smiley face, blah, blah. I was like, I want to fucking get to know you too.
I want to get to know you.
Yeah. So we started talking in like Twitter DMs for a long time. Eventually obviously they moved to regular text, but she was a grade below me. She's like she's like 8 months younger than me, whatever, but like she was a grade below me. And we went to the same school, but she did a thing called Running Start, which is like where you can take college classes in high school to start earning college credits pretty much. So she was doing that. So she was only at like school like 1 or 2 periods, very quick. And so we ended up like meeting in the parking lot in the morning, because she would have like first period and second period, blah, 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 and we'd like walk to the class or whatever, but that type of stuff. Like that's how it kind of like started. We would start hanging out after school, like in the parking lot, like of the school, and because she drove and I drove and blah, blah, blah. And so we started hanging out then, and then prom rolls around, and mind you, like I said earlier, I fucking hate dances. Like I do not want to go to dances. I had no reason to ever want to go to a dance. As far as I'm concerned, I did not. There was no part of me that enjoyed school dances. And I hope I'm not alone on that. I know you said the same thing, but I hope for people who are listening, I hope I'm not alone, because they stink. They're horrible. The DJ is horrible. I always seem to get sick after. Like I'd always get like a cold after, like legitimately. I had like a string where like 3 straight school dances I got a fucking cold after. So at that point, like I just didn't even want to go too. That was part of it. So Caitlin, my wife, she was like, she didn't tell me, but she was like, so are you thinking about going to prom? And I said, I explained I fucking hate dances, so no. And her best friend at the time ended up texting me out of the blue being like, listen, Kaylin really wants to go to the prom with you.
Yeah.
Like, I just want you to know that. Like, she really is like, she's told me that she really wants to go with you. I was like, dude.
Wait, so you told your wife, I don't like dancing, so no?
I said, I don't like school dances, so I'm like, I don't plan on going. Right. we weren't like officially like dating yet or anything either. We were like talking, and it was like getting to that point, but so it's like at first I was kind of like not sure if I wanted to do it, and then I eventually decided, and like my mom was like, like you only get one senior prom. I was like, I guess you're fucking right. I don't know. So I was like, I decided, okay, I'll go. And so I asked her to go to prom. She played golf at the time, so I like bought like pink golf balls, and I wrote like, "Will you go to prom with me?" on the golf balls, and like, because the golf course that they practiced at was like right down the road from the school.
Yeah.
And so there was a practice putting green right outside like the shop, like the like golf shop and fucking like building, whatever all clubs or like golf courses have. Yeah. So as she's like getting ready for practice, I like went out and put it on the putting green and waited inside the shop for her to see it, and like her other friends were like guiding her to go there in like a non-conspicuous way. So she saw it. She obviously said yes because I'm fucking married to her now. So she said yes. We went to prom. I actually like had a good time. And funny story about that too. I was just learning how to budget money at that time, which I'm horrible at now. I don't budget money, but like at the time I was like trying to budget my money, and I was working. So I was like, okay, I need to save up stuff for prom. And I was like itemizing it like dinner and, prom miscellaneous and flowers and the whatever the fuck it's called when you pin it on your shit. I don't know what's called. I don't care. And like, itemizing it and whatever. And I decided to take her to a pretty good restaurant that was like near, because I grew up going to like, not regularly, but my parents would make a point to bring me to like 5-star restaurants.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to teach me how to act if I ever was going there. Yeah, basically. So they made a point of bringing me, every once in a while to like, just, to get used to it if I ever went by myself, basically.
Yeah.
And the place I bring her for prom wasn't necessarily like that bougie, but I was like, okay, so my experience at the time was like, okay, these nice restaurants, I was like in my head, I'm like, okay, when my parents and I go, the ending bill's like $350. So it's like,
damn.
Yeah, because I'm talking like $80 steaks and shit, and I'm like,
dude, like $50 for me is a lot, dude.
I know, dude. And so I was like, okay, how much am I gonna do for dinner? I put $150. I'm like, I'm gonna do $150. We spent $45. I'm like, I had like an extra $100 from dinner. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck to do with this one.
Are you sure you don't want anything else?
I know. It's like, are you sure? And I was like kind of scared to eat in front of her. I was like very nervous. Because I'm like, I don't want to look, because like I'm a big dude, so like I eat fast. I can inhale shit pretty fast. I'm like, I don't want to look like a fucking pig.
Dude, on my first date ever, I slowed my eating on purpose because I didn't want to fucking.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, so we didn't even order appetizers. Like we both only ordered entrees, and I was like, because normally I would order an appetizer and an entree and maybe even dessert, because I'm a big boy. And I was like,
maybe even double dessert, dude.
Yeah, but like then she didn't order appetizers. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not gonna order appetizer, because I'm like, I don't want to look like a fucking pig or something. And so we both like ordered just entrees. So it ended up being like $50 in total. And I was like,
yeah,
oh fuck, I had 150, but whatever. So that was an interesting story about prom. But prom went fine. It went good. And to kind of, so we started like officially like dating at that time. We're like boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yeah.
And that was like April of 2016 when we started dating. April 22nd to be exact. I still remember because I'm a good boy. And I graduated that year in mid-June. And when did, so as I said earlier, we have a kid. Well,
yeah.
I want to say it was late August. We found out that she was pregnant.
Yeah.
So I remember being very terrified because I'm 18, just turned 18.
Gotta go get some milk, dude.
She's still 17.
Yeah.
I work part-time at a fucking community center still. I'm like, oh God, like, what do I do? Like, oh shit. So we're like, we find out, oh, we're having a kid. I remember the day we found out because she had told me that, like, so, the classic, like, oh, it's been a while type thing since something's happened. And I was like, okay. And so she got 2 tests because you shouldn't just get one because false positives or false negatives happen.
Yeah.
And I remember she called me on FaceTime. It was a school day, I think. School day. She called me on FaceTime at like 5:30 in the morning.
God damn.
And I'm like, hi. And and I think that's when she told me. Because she had like she couldn't couldn't sleep that night. So she was like, she just had to take them. And they showed positive. And I was like, okay. But not even awake. I'm barely even awake. So I can't even get my like fucking mind straight. But I just had that terrified feeling of like, and it's hard to describe. And like this is why I wanted to touch on this really heavily, because like I want to talk about like teen pregnancy, because it's a big part of my life and where I'm at now.
Yeah.
And people who are listening, which you probably haven't been in that situation, but if you ever are, to kind of, it's probably better to hear about a story. When I first found out, I was very terrified. And the hard part is I wasn't even so much terrified about the fact of having a baby. I was terrified about telling people.
Oh.
Like, that's what I was terrified of. I was like, how the fuck do I tell my parents this? And how, like, she's going to have to tell her parents. And I was like, that's what I was terrified of, really.
Yeah.
That was the worst part for me. So we didn't tell people initially, like immediately. We waited a couple weeks because we were kind of like too scared to do so. But eventually one night we're like, we need to tell people. Like we just have to. Like we can't just not say this and whatnot. So and especially with pregnancy too, if you don't know pregnancy, like I think like a month in you can take an ultrasound to see it. Like it's just a little speck, but just like to be sure.
Yeah.
So we had to tell people, and I told my family, or I told my parents. They were disappointed, but like they weren't like mad at me because, like, first of all, like, yeah, you could be mad, but like, what is that going to solve? But they're still like disappointed because, like, yeah, I mean, we're young and I'm working part-time. I don't have my life fucking figured out. I'm a kid still, basically.
Yeah.
And she told her parents, and her dad didn't take it very well.
What did her dad do?
Basically, like
shotgun.
No, just basically like wouldn't talk to her, and kind of like it was almost like a shunning type thing in a way. And it ended up getting to the point where she was like, can I just move in with you and you're like in your parents? Because her dad wasn't talking to her. Yeah. And when he did, he would make like stupid remarks about it. And I remember at one point he was like really angry and was saying like, I could technically have him arrested. I'm like, okay, bud, no, you can't really. Like, age of consent's not fucking like, it's lower than 17. So, and I'm like just turned 18. So, but that's how mad he was. He was like, I could have him arrested. And
does he not like you till this day or what?
No, like we're fine now. Sort of like we're fine. Like it's not that, like that's not the issue anymore, right? But at the time, it was bad to the point where she had to come move in with us because her dad was kind of like not happy and almost like was kind of like kicking her out in a way.
What did your parents say when she moved in with you guys? Were they like welcome arms or what?
I told them the situation, and yeah, they were welcoming arms because they're like, we're not going to just like tell her no. Like, and you know, my family is like middle class, like upper middle class or whatever. So it wasn't huge hassle necessarily, but like it was different, right? But yeah, it wasn't the biggest, I don't know, like it's hard to describe. But so she moved in, and pretty much for that whole, literally until the day he was born, he didn't say a word to her. He ended up.
What do you say when the baby was born?
He ended up visiting the hospital, which we were not expecting necessarily. It wasn't that he like came in unannounced. It was more like we just didn't. We like if we were betting money, we would have bet he wouldn't have came.
Yeah.
But he ended up did, and when he came in and saw Carter, he was crying, and I don't. And the hard thing is, I don't know if it was like a feel bad cry, or just like an overwhelmed cry. So I don't know, but we went through the pregnancy. To kind of go back into the teen pregnancy stuff and the issues, people may ask if we thought about trigger warning, abortion. We thought about it because when you're that young, it's a very intimidating thing, and you also question how good of a life you can provide for the kid when you're that young and in the position that we were in. So it crossed our minds. It was never to the point where we were like, yes, we're going to do this. And then we changed our minds, because neither of us wanted to do that. But we understood that that was an option, but we decided not to. To this day, I mean, I'm pro-choice, because I think it should be up to the female. And two, I think people should have the choice, because pregnancy is not easy. Like especially this pregnancy now has been fucking hell on my wife's body. It's not an easy thing to go through, pregnancy, and it's also not necessarily safe for people too. People have really bad issues with pregnancy that can pour over to the rest of their lives. But we decided to keep the pregnancy going, which, I mean, granted, is the best decision we ever made, because I wouldn't change anything. Even though, yes, we were young, I wouldn't change anything, because at the end of the day, like, I mean, my son's 4 now. Like, I love him to death, and I always will. And like, I couldn't see my life without him. So I would never have changed that or anything about it. I mean, technically, it would have been much better to fucking wait until we were like established in life, but that's not what happened. And at the end of the day, if anyone is dealing with teen pregnancy, I think what you do have to understand is like, yes, you could have waited or whatever, but at the same time, like, if it's happening, it's happening. And instead of worrying about like, oh my God, like I'm so young and like I have so much to do late in life, blah, blah, blah. It's happening. Like, instead of focusing on that, focus on what can I do to make sure I provide the best possible life for this child. And that's kind of the mode we ended up going in. So we kept the pregnancy, and we decided, we're going to see this through and whatnot. And we started trying to figure out what the plan was going to be for income and where we were going to stay. And we ended up deciding that we're going to stay at my parents' house, and whatnot. And they were fine with that, and they understood that that was kind of the only thing we could do. So, and I was still working only like part-time. And I think, I don't remember if it was before Carter or after. I want to say it was before Carter. I started working at Starbucks too, along with the community center job. And I was trying to just get as much income as I could without like fucking killing myself. So fast forward, Carter gets born. The birth is birth in general is a very interesting experience. I saw a lot. And it's like a terrifying experience, because there's things they don't always tell you. Like, one thing a lot of people don't know is blood loss is very common and a lot of it. And I was kind of freaking out when he was born because, one, my wife was in labor for 36 hours.
God damn.
And she was pushing for 4 hours, which is a long fucking time.
Yeah.
And she was having a lot of issues. She was anemic, which means that your iron is very low in your blood or something like that.
Yeah.
So very anemic. Like the way anemia is measured is like the normal amount of hemoglobin or whatever, or fucking iron, I don't know which one, is 13 for a normal reading. She was at 4. She was low as shit, to the point where they were giving her blood infusions and iron infusions.
During the labor?
I think some during the labor and then some after.
Yeah.
So that for pregnancy you get a thing called an epidural, which is like
I heard they put that in the spine, right?
Yeah, it's a needle that goes into your spine and it injects numbing fluid that is supposed to numb your legs and down, like your waist down pretty much. And that didn't work very well. It worked like her left leg was still not fully numb.
Yeah.
So that was an issue. We had the prolonged labor alone is a lot. That's a lot of energy that it takes to fucking be in labor. It got to the point where it was going on for so long, the doctor gave me a choice. They said either we can do an emergency C-section, or we could do these things called forceps, which are basically like two big, like, they look like spoons in a way, and they grab onto the baby's head and pull them out, right? I'm 18 fucking years old and I have to make this decision because she's so zonked out that in like to the, like at the end of the labor and the pushing, she was falling asleep in between contractions. And contractions are every like 2 minutes, and she's falling like as soon as the contraction's over, she's like this, like falling asleep.
Dude,
I had to make that decision as an 18-year-old fucking kid.
Yeah.
I decided to go with the forceps instead of the C-section because from the start we're like we wanted to do it natural, right?
Yeah, and everybody says that until it happens.
Yeah, worst decision of my fucking life, and I stand by that. I wish I had chosen C-section, but I didn't. I chose the forceps, and it did a lot of damage to Caitlin, is the best way I can put it, and I felt horrible. And it's damage that still affects her to this day. And I feel horrible, but I also have to understand that it's not my fault because one, I shouldn't have been put in that position in the first place. The doctors should have made the fucking call because they're doctors, but you let an 18-year-old kid make the decision. Like, makes no sense.
Dude, my mom had like all of us were C-sections.
Yeah, this one's a C-section, a planned C-section, because of what happened. So, but you know, baby comes out. I was worried because you know the amount of blood loss is a lot, and I genuinely was like scared for her.
Yeah,
and I was worried because I was watching it happen, and I was worried with the amount of blood loss. I was like, I'm gonna look over and she's gonna be passed out or something, like dying. Like that's literally what I thought. I'm like, this is so much she has to like be dying, basically.
Yeah.
Well, obviously she didn't die.
Dude, if I had a kid and they were like, if I was like right next to her, I'd get my phone like, is it done yet? It's done.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and so, but you know, once he was out and they were dealing with baby and her, you know, it was kind of like one of those things where it's like your emotions just kind of like rush out, and so I just started crying and hugging her and whatnot, and it was just one of those things where like you just can't help it. You just have to like let it happen, pretty much.
Yeah.
So Carter was born and May 14th at like 6 something in the evening in 2017. And from then on, my life has been a lot different. We'll put it that
Oh,
way.
I bet, dude.
So we ended up living with my parents for a while, and then we eventually moved out because we were having drama issues with my parents.
Yeah.
And we decided we had to remove ourselves from there. And so we stayed with a different family friend for a total like 3 months until we were able to save up for our own apartment.
Like
And
the same one you have right now?
no, a different apartment.
Ah.
But it was, I'm trying to think. When we got the other apartment, I ended up working 2 jobs. I was working at Starbucks and I was working at a place called Spectrum, which is
Oh, I fucking hate Spectrum.
yeah, don't worry, I do too now. I was working in their call center as a representative for their billing department. And I think that's one of the first times in my life during that time when I think I felt legitimate depression. Because growing up, I didn't have depression. I
Yeah.
Everything was fine. I didn't have really many issues, and I didn't have responsibilities or really anything weighing on me. So I was able to, like, if a problem happened, I was able to get over it real quick because I
Yeah.
didn't like it was fine. Now that's when like my first legitimate like bout of depression happened because I was going to Starbucks at 4 a.m. in the morning, opening up. I would work there until about noon. I would be home for about an hour and then go
Yeah.
to Spectrum until 9 o'clock. And I hated every second of it.
I
And
bet.
not only did I
Yeah.
hate the job at Spectrum, Starbucks was like okay, but like I hated my every fucking second working that job. It sucked. Customer service sucks dick. People are fucking rude to you for things that aren't even your problem or your fault, but they act like it is over
Yeah.
meaningless bullshit. I hated it. And
It's
not
like
all
the thing with like internet providers and all that stuff is like
Mhm.
it's because like the people know that if you bitch enough, like you gotta like collect a representative or some
Yeah,
fucking shit.
yeah, and you'll get a refund or you'll get a credit, blah blah blah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that, but not only did I hate every minute of my life when I was working that job, I was gone all the fucking time
Yeah.
from my wife and my kid. And
Yeah.
I hated that too because
I bet, dude.
when
You're working all the time. You're not able to see like your wife and your kid. Like
yeah, like I would get in, especially with like, Starbucks and like the Spectrum job was specific days of the week, but
yeah,
Starbucks wasn't. So
which
there
is
was
random or what?
it was random. So there was times when I'd have one day off and
Yeah.
then I would work 10 straight days
Fuck.
at Starbucks at least. Like, maybe not work at Spectrum all 10 days, obviously, but like and, and I just was like I hated it. I'm like I can't believe I'm that person working 2 jobs just to support a family. Like that's horrible. And
Yeah.
I got very depressed and I did not enjoy life basically. I
Yeah.
never got suicidal or anything like that. I decided I can't live like this. Like this
Yeah.
is not I cannot let this happen or be my life because I hate it and that's going to start translating over to my kid and I don't want that.
Yeah. There's so
So,
much of a mental strain when you're doing like just 2 jobs. Like there's so much stress on that, and then the stress that you're not even like for
yeah.
example, right? Like there's so much stuff going on at home that you're not aware of until you get home when you're all tired and
Mhm.
you're all fucking, you know.
Yeah, so I was like I need to change this. This needs to be different.
Yeah.
So I started job searching again, and my goal was I want to work one job that pays enough. So at that time, I think the way I calculated, I'm like 20 something dollars an hour, where I only had to do one job, a regular full time amount, like, the
Yeah.
normal 40 hours. I don't have a college degree, so it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
And so I was job searching and one day a listing came up that and my wife was doing a lot of it like a lot of the searching because like while I'm at work she was the one who was like on Indeed and then like when I would come home she would be like hey there's this and this and this blah blah blah. So a listing came up for a job that was full time that started at $23 an hour, no degree needed. You just had to go through this pretty long process to get hired. So I said, okay, let me try. And this job was for, I try to keep it a secret, but I don't fucking need to. 911 dispatching. And I was like, okay. So the process was like kind of laid out already. They're like, you need to pass this test called a critical test, which is like, it's like a performance, it's gauging your performance on multiple things. There's like 5 modules. There's like typing to audio, so like you hear stuff and then you translating it to words and typing, and typing from seeing, so just like visually seeing something and typing it, and then there was like decision making and those types of things, like the normal skills that you would exhibit to be a 911 dispatcher, not like trauma stuff, because you can't teach that really, but it was just like the technical aspects of the job. And so I was like, you know what, like fuck it, let's just try. And so you have the critical test, and then you have, I'm trying to think of all the steps, it's a really long fucking process. You have the critical test, then you have to pass a background check, like a very extensive background check, and I'll go a little bit more in depth in a second, and like a psychological test or evaluation, a physical evaluation, and
a physical evaluation.
Yeah, and then you have 2 interviews, like 2 oral interviews, and then you also have to do like a 2-hour sit along. So the critical test is first. I'm really worried because I don't type that often. I'm like worried that I'm gonna be like too slow of a typer, basically, was like my thing I was worried about. And you have to pass, I don't remember what it is. I think there's like a certain thing where you have to like pass a certain amount of the modules to keep going through. You have to pass at least 3 of the 5 or some shit. I want to say it's like that. And I passed 2, and I had failed another one, but I had failed by like 0.2 something of a percent. And they're like, we're just gonna put you through. Like, that's close enough, basically.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, cool. And so then you go to your first oral interview, which is with 2 of the main people, and then an actual dispatcher, because they like to have their input too. So I did that. I interview fairly well, so I wasn't like too worried about it. I'm pretty good at interviews like that, so I wasn't too worried. And they were all pretty nice, and they did like a thing during the interview where they give you 5 scenarios. So like 5 like emergency scenarios, like there's a fire in a tree and it's next to a building, or there's a baby stuck in a hot car, that type of stuff. And then they're like, rate this 1 through 5 out of what you think the highest priority to the lowest priority, basically.
Yeah.
And then give your reasonings why. Yeah, and like they give your reasonings why. So I did that. I gave my reasons. That must have apparently been good enough. So I was like, cool. And so then you have to do the background check first. And the background check is fucking extensive. Like, they basically want to know everyone in your fucking life. They want to know who you're friends with, what their contact information is. They want to know, like, literally everyone that like, you need to put down there, pretty much. Like, it's insane. And, like, you need to write about your life and shit. And I'm like, okay. Got through that, and I was fine, because, like, I'm not a criminal. Like, I just go to school and I watch fucking YouTube. Like, I'm not, like, yeah, whatever. And I was like, okay, I'll be fine. And then you have to do a psychological evaluation, which was really interesting, because the first thing they have you do, and I was doing this with like multiple other, they weren't applying for my job, they were applying for like police positions in other places, but they have to go through the same thing. At least they have to go through the same psychological evaluation. And the first thing is like one of those bubble sheets where you fill out like ABC or whatever. Yeah. And it's like multiple choice. And before I went to the mental evaluation, someone who had done it before told me that really the whole point of it is to see if they can get you to like fuck up or get frustrated and whatever. So like, just keep calm and just like get through it. Like, you'll be fine. So it's like, okay. And with the bubble sheets, what's frustrating about them, one, they're fucking long as shit. It's like you have to do like 500 questions,
Yeah.
and then a lot of them repeat, so they'll be the same question from before, and you're like, I answered this fucking like 50 questions ago. What the fuck? And but you have to do it, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, you have to do an actual oral evaluation with an actual person. And this dude was a retired NYPD like detective from the Bronx.
Yeah.
So I was like, uh-oh. I was like, okay. And I figured out what he was doing very quick, like what his thing was. So he's asking you just like questions about your life and like why you think you would be good at doing 911 dispatching and like that type of stuff. And he would also have you do other like spatial drills. So there was like a one where it had like numbered pegs on it, or like pegs like of varying sizes, and you would touch them, and then you'd have to do that in reverse. And
Yeah.
and he would see how many you could do, and other tests too. And I was doing really fucking good at those. Like I was getting to like I could touch like 15 in reverse order, right?
Yeah.
And remember, or something like that. But I figured out during the actual interview portion, what he does to fuck you up is he acts like any question you give isn't good enough. So like if you give like a pretty decent answer, he'll be like that and writing his notes. So it
Yeah.
like seems like he's like not satisfied with your fucking answer. And the reason I know this is what he was doing is because when he was all done, he's like, "You're gonna do great, good job, bud," and like gave me a handshake. he's like, you're gonna do this job well. I was like, okay, cool. And so got through that, and then I had to do like a physical evaluation, which pretty much they like drug test you. That's really all that is. I mean, they're doing like a regular like physical, but like
I
I
felt
mean
like
it's
they
a
check your balls or something,
they
dude.
do, but it's like it's a sedentary fucking job. So it's like
Like
they're really
Fushigi.
yeah. So yeah, it's like yeah, but like all they're really doing is like piss testing you, I think, for
Yeah.
drugs. Um, so I got through that, went to my second oral interview, and then did the 2 hour sit along, which was like my first time actually hearing everything. And it's really interesting because when you do it and you're looking at the screens, when I went there, I was like, what the fuck does any of this mean? And it's really interesting because now I know what everything means and what
Yeah.
everything means. But you're going there, you're like, what the fuck is this?
Dude, is it like I have a question, right? I've always been curious about like what it looks like in there. Is it just like a black room with like just giant monitors everywhere, or
No,
what is it? No.
no, it's a pretty large room, and it has
Okay, so that's one that's right.
16 total pods. It's not dark. Like we keep the lights on, or it's like there's like sky light kind of stuff where if it's bright outside, it'll have some natural
Yeah.
light too. Every pod has 5 monitors ish. 3 of them are for like your actual job function. One of them is for calls coming in, and
Another
the
one's for
other
cool math games.
and the other one is for yeah, and the other one is all the radios.
Radios,
Yeah.
interesting.
So yeah,
So
and then
basically, like what I imagine, just without the darkness.
sort of like if you like people who watch like the show 911, it's not like that. 911 makes it seem all futuristic and shit, and it's not like that. It's not. It's fucking Windows 10 and like like this really like old looking program pretty much. So yeah, but I ended up getting through all of the parts, and I was very excited because I was like, not only am I making enough money to like fucking provide for my family, I'm only working one job, right?
Yeah.
So to fast forward, because I don't want to take too much more time because I'm actually going over your time at this point. Um I've been doing that since then. I've been there for 2.5-ish years at this point. Um I no, like a little over 2 years. Um, like I said earlier, I have my wife. I'm still married to my wife, Caitlin. Carter's 4 now, and we have a baby due next month, and we have a puppy, and we're in a different apartment than where we were initially, but we like this place better. Um, and my life at this point is pretty much work, family stuff, and I guess technically YouTube stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much like my origin story in a way. Like I could have gotten more in depth with some things, but I don't want to take too long. So that's pretty much from little JakeyT Live, baby JakeyT Live, to 22-year-old JakeyT Live.
Yo, baby JakeyT.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
Fushigi.
Fushigi the balls. Yeah. So that's been my origin story pretty much. But
amazing story, dude.
Yeah, but I don't know. We could do if you have more questions or things you want me to expand upon in a different episode, then leave it in the comments. It's totally fine. Yeah, so that's me. So not exactly the same story as Bones, but it's not as dramatic necessarily.
Dude,
but
I forgot to talk about like the other homelessness and other shit, dude. It's fine though.
That's okay. We'll get there eventually. We'll do a part 2 to Bones' origin story.
There's more shit, dude. I gotta write it down next time, dude.
Yeah, but we also don't want these to be like 2-hour, 3-hour long episodes too.
This is like there's like so much shit to talk about, but there's not enough time.
Exactly. So
that's fun.
Fushigi. Well, yeah, Fushigi them balls forever and always. So that's gonna be it for episode 18 of the Good Boys podcast. We appreciate you listening to this point. Like and subscribe, please. That would be super sick. And leave comments. That would also be super duper fucking sick as shit. And I think that's gonna be it from us. So we will see you next week, I think.
Next week. Later.